In the theme park world, nothing is safe. Amazing rides, attractions, and shows can be retired in the blink of an eye when the people in charge decide to guillotine them. Lands are not excluded from this, and they can go from being magical places to becoming lost and forgotten. So today, we'll be talking about gone and forgotten theme park lands. We're going to be ranking these lands based on 3 factors: the quality of the design and theme, the attractions that they contained, and how beloved it was, and how much we miss it. Number 7. Land of Oz, Universal Studios, Japan. We'll be starting the list with one of the least known lands. Back in 2006, Universal Studios Japan was celebrating its 5th anniversary, and as part of the celebration, a new land based on the Wizard of Oz was created. The Land of Oz included the Munchkin Town, Emerald City, and the famous Yellow Brick Road, and when it opened, it had 2 attractions. The first one was Wicked. This had a shortened version of the acclaimed Broadway musical. The other was an animal actors show called Toto and Friends. The area also had a restaurant called Munchkin Kitchen and a Munchkin Market store, and in 2007, the area added another attraction, the magical Oz Go Round, an Oz-inspired carousel. One of the best attractions of this land was the great meet and greets where guests could spend time with Dorothy, the Tin Man, Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion. In theory, this land sounds fantastic, but sadly, the execution was not. And for many guests, it was the worst area in the park because it felt improvised and of low quality in comparison to the rest of the park. In 2012, as part of the park renovations, this land disappeared to make way for Universal Wonderland, a whole new area that contains 3 mini-lands based on Hello Kitty, Sesame Street, and Snoopy. The new area includes 20 attractions and is a huge improvement from its predecessor. We ranked this land in the last place because, as we said before, it felt very improvised. Its theming didn't manage to immerse guests into the world of Oz. The attractions were not that memorable. And in all, this land was quickly forgotten. Number 6. Condor Flats, Disney's California Adventure. California Adventure's opening was a huge disaster. When it opened, the park had 4 themed lands: Sunshine Plaza, Paradise Pier, Hollywood Pictures Backlot, and Golden State. The last area was divided into 6 sub-areas, which were themed around several aspects of California and its history. And one of these sub-areas was Condor Flats. Condor Flats was supposed to be a desert airfield and testing facility, celebrating California's aeronautic history. Surrounded by metal lattice structures, satellite dishes, old rocket parts, and desert rocks, the runway-lined land really existed solely to host Soarin' over California. It also had the Taste Pilot's Grill restaurant and the Condor Flats Fly-In By store. The land remained that way for a while, but just like the problems with the rest of the park, it was too modern and edgy and lacked the magic of visiting an idealized and historical place. Not only that, but the tiny land wedged against the evergreen forested Grizzly Peak certainly didn't feel like an expansive desert. Condor Flats received some light placemaking during the park's 5-year reconstruction and emerged during the park's 2012 reopening as its own standalone land. But just 3 years after Condor Flats had been turned into a full, standalone land, Imagineers decided to change it again, and they did a beautiful transformation. The land was absorbed into the nearby Grizzly Peak and its 1950s national park setting. Desert rocks became high Sierra rocks, cactuses became evergreens, rusted metal scaffolds became fire watchtowers, scrap metal was replaced with a family sedan, parked and ready for a hike. Taste Pilot's Grill was turned into Smoke Jumper's Grill, and the Condor Flats Fly-In By store became Humphrey's Service and Supplies, which now pays tribute to classic 50s pit stop shops, selling odds, ends, and souvenirs for passing travelers. The Grizzly Peak Airfield is inarguably an improvement over the land it replaced. Condor Flats is number 6 on our list because the land was just rethemed. Other than the theme change, we really didn't lose anything, and the area still has a Soarin', a restaurant, and 1 store. And even though in 2016, Soarin' over California was turned into Soarin' over the world, the former comes back every once in a while. Number 5. Merlinwood, Universal's Islands of Adventure. When Islands of Adventure was being planned, Universal hired many of the designers that had been working with Disney to create Beastly Kingdom, to create the Lost Continent area of the park. This area is dedicated to myths and legends, just as Beastly Kingdom was going to be. And when the park opened, this area was the only area that was an entirely original creation, because the rest of the park was based on already existing franchises. When it first opened, the land was divided into 3 realms: the Lost City, Sinbad's Bazaar, and Merlinwood. Merlinwood was based on an original Arthurian tale, and it invited guests into a medieval village of pubs, artisans, and inventors. And just outside the village, in the old castle ruins, guests could find the legendary dueling dragons, two intertwined coasters performing an aerial battle with precision-timed near-miss maneuvers. This was a fantastic area of the land with great theming that combined storytelling and thrills. But then, in 2010, this area was demolished and it became part of the wizarding world of Harry Potter, particularly Hogsmeade. Only Merlinwood was retired. The other two realms of the Lost Continent continue to exist. Dueling Dragons survived this demolition and was rethemed and turned into Dragon Challenge that same year, until it closed forever in 2017. Number 4. Bear Country, Disneyland. The Country Bear Jamboree opened at Magic Kingdom in 1971 and became such a great attraction that it was the first Walt Disney World attraction to be replicated at Disneyland. And so, the Country Bear Jamboree opened at Disneyland in 1972. But unlike at Magic Kingdom, where the Bear Band plays in Frontierland, Disneyland used this opportunity to carve a new land out around the rivers of America. This land was Bear Country. Bear Country was Disneyland's 7th themed land, and was Disneyland's first major expansion since the 1969 opening of the Haunted Mansion. This land was home to the Golden Bear Lodge, an eatery which was renamed Hungry Bear Restaurant in 1977, the mile-long bar refreshment center, Teddy Barra's Swing and Arcade, Davy Crockett's Explore Canoes, and of course, the Country Bear Jamboree. Then, in 1989, Splash Mountain joined the land and became the star attraction of the area. So, Imagineers decided that Bear Country had to change to Critter Country, a lane that would include all types of critters and not just the bears. The mile-long bar closed with this change in 1989, but Country Bear Jamboree remained until 2001, when it was replaced by the many adventures of Winnie the Pooh. Now, Disney has announced that Splash Mountain will be with the new Princess and the Frog story. Imagineer Chardia Carter will be serving as senior creative producer leading the project, with the one and only Tony Baxter coming out of retirement to serve as a creative advisor. This is a really exciting change, and we can't help but wonder if Critter Country will be joining the ranks of retired lands, or if it will be staying the same with the addition of this new ride. We rank Bear Country in number 4 because, with the loss of this land, we also lost a great classic. But thankfully, we still get to experience it at Walt Disney World. Still, Winnie the Pooh is an awesome ride, so we can't be too sad about the change. Number 3. A Bug's Land, Disney's California Adventure.
Have you ever felt the shade from a field of clover? Ever sailed on a leaf from a tree 10 times your size? Ever rubbed elbows with creatures who have 6 of them? Now's your chance to discover a fun new land of gigantic proportions. Flicks Fun Fair at Disney's California Adventure. Oh, come live the life of a bug in a whole new land with 5 new attractions. Flicks Fun Fair, opening October 2002 at Disney's California Adventure. Ah, lovely.
As we've said before, California Adventure's opening was a huge disaster, and one of the many complaints that guests had about this new park was the lack of Disney original characters and not having enough attractions for small kids. California Adventure began making some changes in order to appeal to guests, and the first change that came was the addition of a Bug's Land. This land was constructed in a small lot adjacent to the already existing It's Tough to Be a Bug 3D show, and it had some relatively simple and off-the-shelf family rides, like bumper cars, 2 spinners, a splash park, and of course, the iconic Heimlich's Choo Choo Train that were overlaid with bug-sized details. This mini-land was very cute, and it had a very cool way of shrinking guests and taking them into the world of Flick and Ada, but it wasn't mind-blowing. Still, it kind of solved these 2 problems. It added more Disney characters and kid-friendly rides to the park. The land remained like this for many years, but then in 2016, Disney decided to bring Marvel into California Adventure by turning the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror into Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. This caused a massive uproar among fans, but in the end, Imagineers created a super fun ride that became an instant favorite for a lot of people at least. When Disney announced that a new Marvel-themed land was coming to the park, it was initially supposed to overtake the park's Hollywood land altogether. But in the end, it was decided that it would have to be built where A Bug's Land currently was. A Bug's Land was closed in September of 2018, and Avengers Campus started being built. This new land will have two amazing attractions: a Spider-Man attraction known as the Worldwide Engineering Brigade, or Web Headquarters, and a whole new e-ticket attraction, where you will step on board a Quinjet and fly along the Avengers in an epic adventure to Wakanda. The land was supposed to open on July 18th of this year, but was sadly postponed because construction had to be stopped. Bugs Land is in number 3 in this list because the land's theming was amazing and a favorite among many guests, but other than the iconic Heimlich's choo-choo train, it didn't have any great attractions. This land will live in most of our memories as a beloved land, but we think Avengers Campus will be an amazing addition to the park that will bring many great attractions. Number 2. Amity, Universal Studios Florida. When Universal Studios Florida opened back in 1990, it brought all of our favorite movies to life. And they did this by creating picture-perfect recreations of the real place, ready for their close-up. New York, Hollywood, San Francisco, and Amity. Recreating the placid islands of Cape Cod and Massachusetts in the midst of a charming community street festival, Amity truly existed for one solitary reason: to house the fantastic and sadly now retired attraction, Jaws. The land was so great that, in fact, Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours, the ride's departure point, featured real props from the films, and the ride's cue video was cleverly disguised as Amity's local news station. The land was perfectly tied in with the ride because the ride's story was set in Amity Island, years after the original events of Jaws. These events had made tourism drop at the island, so a local sailor named Jake Grundy decided to create a tour to take guests to the sites where the attacks had taken place. Visiting this part of the park was a whole experience, but of course, unlike the park's other themed lands, this quaint village drawn right from Jaws didn't really have a reason to exist without its headlining ride. And when Jaws was closed in 2012, there was no reason to have Amity in the park. So it was gone forever. Amity became the London waterfront, home to the King's Cross station. Stepping through the shops of London leads to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Diagon Alley. This Wizarding World expansion is mind-blowing for Harry Potter fans everywhere. But this land is number 2 on this list because we can't help but miss Amity and its incredible signature ride, Jaws. Number 1. Future World, Epcot. When Epcot was being planned, the main idea was to divide the park into 2 areas, the World Showcase and Future World. Both of these areas would be inspired by the World Fair, full of different pavilions that would be permanent. The Future World was designed to be a showcase for the future, showcasing new technology in conjunction with stories often exploring the past, how we got to the present, and giving a glimpse into the future. Originally, Future World debuted with 6 pavilions: Spaceship Earth, Communicore, Imagination, The Land, Universe of Energy, and World of Motion. The Horizons Pavilion opened the following year, and the Living Seas and Wonders of Life Pavilion were added in 1986 and 1989, respectively, bringing the lineup to 9. But the increasing speed of technological advances, changing the views of futurism, and the demand of the corporate sponsors that partnered with Disney on these various attractions would ultimately prove to be a challenge to the staying power of these attractions. And Future World's story has been defined by evolution. Over time, nearly every one of its pavilions has dropped the epic educational dark rides that define them, like Universe of Energy, Body Wars, Horizons, World of Motion, Journey into Imagination, Kitchen Cabaret, and the Living Seas. And now the biggest change is about to come. Last year at the D23 Expo, it was announced that Epcot would undergo the most radical transformation in its lifetime. Future World would receive the huge reimagining it's needed for years. But that means that the last remains of what the area used to be would have to be retired. Since Future World has long since dropped its focus on futurism and industry in favor of discovery and thrills, the Future World name will be retired. Instead, it will be subdivided into 3 neighborhoods: World Discovery, World Celebration, and World Nature. With this, Disney is hoping that this area of Epcot will now be more timeless. While we are excited to see what Disney comes up with for this area of the park, we placed it in number 1 because we feel that the concept of Future World was unique. And not only that, but also Future World's attractions were extraordinary, having amazing technological advancements and also original themes. For many of us, Future World has been one of the best, if not the best land ever created at a Disney park, and it will have a huge place in theme park enthusiasts' hearts, always. Do you agree with this list? Let us know how you would rate them. It's sad to see lands being retired at theme parks, but it's fascinating to get to visit the lands that replace them. And you can do it if you start planning your next magical vacation with our friends at PixieVacations.com. They will help you plan your perfect vacation to any Disney or Universal park, specifically tailored to your vacation style and budget. And working with a Pixie is completely free. So talk with them to make the best out of your next vacation. See you next time.